Hi there everyone. I'm about to take you back down to the south coast of Western Australia where I've been using the GFX50R on loan to me by the good people from Fujifilm Australia. I do plan on sharing my thoughts on that camera in a review video very soon, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on that. After I capture a few images, we'll come back here and I'm going to edit one of the images for you. So off we go to Elephant Cove near Denmark. Good morning everyone, and what a sensational morning I've got this morning. I was expecting it to be a little bit windier than what it is, but it's actually not too bad. I've come down to Williams Bay again. I was here yesterday, which I would have shown in a previous video, and I took some shots down at Green's Pool. Very close to Green's Pool in the other direction, the easterly direction, is Elephant Rocks. And I've done a vlog here before as well. Now, I'm not too sure how happy Fujifilm would be with me, but at the moment I've got what looks like in the middle of the sea the GFX50R with the 23mm lens on the front, sitting pretty much in the middle of the ocean. It's not really in the middle of the ocean, it is in the middle of the water. It's mounted to my tripod, and I've positioned it in front of the main rock here in the middle of the bay, which they call Elephant Rocks. They call it Elephant Rocks for a very good reason. The rocks behind you, from a certain angle, look like a herd of elephants. I'll try and show you that in a second. You pretty much have to be on the left-hand side looking across to get the best perspective there. But the shot that I'm trying to go for at the moment is just a very simple shot. It's of this main rock in the middle. There are some rocks, I'll show you. There's rocks either side off in the distance. And that's why I've come so close. The challenge with a shot like this is to try and create some simplicity, to simplify the scene a little bit. Otherwise you just get a mass of rocks and they all seem to join in together for one great big line of rocks, and in actual fact they're all separate, and what I'm trying to do is create some simplicity by coming right up close to this rock with the 23mm lens and isolate that rock on its own. The land, the granite outcrop on the left hand side, I've got a few of the rocks on the right hand side, but they're really just framing what is essentially just this one rock in the middle of the ocean. So at the moment I'm taking shots at 1/15th and 1/30th of a second. That's on ISO 100, which is the base ISO for the 50R, and my aperture is at f8 because I'm just focused in on just the one subject. I've also got with me my 6 stop leaf filter, and I'm about to put that on the front because I'm going to try and create a shot with a longer shutter speed to try and smoothen out the water, and again create an image where you've got the soft smooth water and then the detail of this rock right in the center of the image. So I'll take the shot and I'll show you that image now. I'm pleased with the way that I think that shot has turned out. So what I've done is change things up a little bit. I'm still trying to isolate that rock, but I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. I've moved back from the rock now. The rock is a little bit further away, so I've come back towards the shore. And I've swapped out the lenses. I did have the 23mm lens on. I've now got the 32 to 64mm lens on there. And I'm now just zooming in a little bit closer. So in the end, I think the rock is going to be around about the same size as it was in the previous image, roughly. But I'm just getting a little bit of balance with the rocks behind. So I'm going to have some rocks on the left and some rocks on the right. And there's a challenge here in that I won't get a lot of separation. But what I'm thinking is, back in Lightroom, I will edit the rock in the middle slightly differently to the rocks to the left and the right. And in that way, provide that main subject in the middle some separation from all of the rocks in the background. The other thing that I've done is I've shortened the legs on the tripod and I've lowered the camera so that I'm lower down. And that's hopefully to create a little bit of drama and to make the rock a little bit larger in the image, because that's the predominant subject of the shot. As I said, I'm using the 32 to 64 and I'm zoomed in at around about 48mm. That's to get rid of everything on the right and everything on the left, and just to have that rock isolated on its own with a few rocks off in the distance. I've got a circular polarizer on the front. That's just to take any of the glare off the surface of the water. I've got a 0.6 soft graduated filter, and that's just to take a little bit of light off the clouds and the sky, just to even up the exposure across the image. And at the moment I've still got the 6-stop neutral density filter on the front. That just slows everything down and allows me to smooth out the water. Again, this image is about the contrast of the textures in the rocks and then the smooth soft water around the edge. So I'm back in the studio and I wanted to show you how I edited that last shot. I get plenty of requests about my post-processing. It's probably something I should share more of on the channel. Not only is editing an important part of the process of creating an image, it also can help you improve your landscape photography. The more you edit your photos, the more you learn about the editing process and where you can take an image. This expands your creative vision and you become more aware of what you want to capture and how you want to capture it when you're out on location. Before I start, I just want to make one more point. My most unliked and downvoted videos are those videos where I share my post-processing. And I think it's because those people who hit the thumbs down are missing the point. I'm not telling you how you should edit your images. I'm just simply sharing how I edit mine. By doing so, hopefully you'll gain a better insight into how I create my final images and a better understanding of what I'm visualizing when I'm out on location, and perhaps pick up some tips and tricks along the way. So with that said, let's get started. Rightio. So here we are in Lightroom, and as you can see from the original image from the 50R, the light was fairly flat that day. But with a little bit of editing, we're going to be able to make the most of this image. What's interesting is if you go and zoom in on the image, this is a 1:1, you can see the incredible detail that you get from the 50 megapixel sensor. It really is fantastic, just amazing detail there in the algae which is growing at the bottom of that rock. The first part of this edit, I'm going to try and go through it as quickly as possible. It's a fairly straightforward approach to editing. I want to take a little bit more time to concentrate on the parts of the edit which is specific to or unique to this particular image. So to start off with, I just make sure that the image is level, which it does look like it is. I'll probably crop it later on. I'll then zoom down to the lens correction, make sure that remove chromatic aberration is on. I won't worry about the profile correction at this stage. So I'm going to hit auto white balance. That's looking pretty good to me. I'm just going to warm it up just a tad, maybe a little less green. There you go. And I'm also going to hit the tone, auto tone there. And for the majority, I'm quite happy with that. You can see that we're losing a fair amount of detail in the cloud here, and it really doesn't matter what I do to the highlights. If I just bring the highlights down just a little bit more, there's not a lot that I'm bringing back. So I want to do something with that in a second. I'm just going to go down to clarity and just bring the clarity up just a smidge, not overdoing it, and the dehaze as well, just a little bit of that. It brings out some of the detail there, particularly in the rock. Okay, let's fix this sky. I'm going to grab the graduated filter mask here on the right hand side. As you saw earlier in the video, I did actually have a graduated filter, it was 0.6, to bring down the highlights in the sky. That enabled me to take the shot without the sky being blown out. You can see on the histogram here that I've got some room, but I still want to bring out some of the detail and make it a little bit more moody. So to do that, I'm going to bring down a graduated filter mask or filter, and to make sure that it's level, I'm going to hold shift down, and I'm going to continue bringing it down until I've got the middle at around about the bottom of that rock there, and I'm just going to bring that up to the top. Now these are settings from a previous time that I've used the filter, so I'm going to zero that by just simply clicking on the label here, double clicking. And effectively what I want to do here with the exposure is I just want to bring it down a reasonable amount. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. But it's bringing everything down. I know that I'm darkening the rocks. I'm going to worry about that in a little while. But it's darkening everything in the sky, highlights and the shadows or the darker areas of the clouds. And I don't want to do that. So to fix that, I'm going to select the filter again, and I'm going to come over to the range mask. Now I'm going to choose a luminance here, and then I'm going to use the range and just remove the highlights from the range, and I don't want to move it too much. Probably around about there is enough, and I may just bring down the smoothness a fraction. But you can see what I've done there in the sky. It's brought out more detail without me having to increase contrast or anything like that. So I find that's a really effective way of creating some mood in the cloud, but also increasing the detail that's there. I'm done with that, and I'm going to move on. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at the colours here. Primarily, I think I'm going to be concentrating on the top 3 channels. I really don't want to increase any of the greens in the image, and there's really not a lot in the way of aqua blue, purple or magenta. So I'm going to start at the top here with the red. I'm going to swing it left to right. And what that does is it allows me to look at the parts of the image that are going to be affected by this. In actual fact, I'm not going to start on luminance. I'm actually going to go to saturation. So again, swinging left and right, I'm having a look. I can see that it's just affecting just a little bit of the parts of the rock here. Don't know whether that's coming out on the video, but look, I really don't want to pull that up too much because it's only a small area. The orange is probably going to be a completely different story. If I pull the orange down and then push the orange up again, you can see that there's plenty of orange in this image. So primarily it's around the rocks. So again, I don't want to overdo this. So around about there, just giving the oranges just a little bit of a lift. And the yellows are the same, but I've got quite a lot of yellow, or it's affecting quite a lot of the water, and I don't want to make that yellow. So probably just slightly less on that one. That's looking pretty good. Quickly over to luminance. I'm going to do a similar sort of thing here, just having a look at where it affects it. It's actually affecting a little bit in the cloud there, so I just want to be careful of that. The oranges, nice, so I'll just bring the oranges to about there. Don't want to do it too much more. And then the yellows as well. Just see where that's affecting. Yep. So again, I don't want to do it too much, otherwise it looks like I've got glare on the surface of the water, so probably bringing that down is a sensible thing. Something like that, I'm happy with that. Okay, I'm going to skip right over the sharpening and the detail. I'm not going to worry about that. And look, down the bottom here, I am going to add some vignetting, but I'm not going to do it here just yet. I'm going to show you a different way which I do vignetting. So that is not bad in terms of a starting point, I suppose, for this image. But now what I really want to do is bring out a lot of the detail, a lot of the colour in these rocks. So to do that, I'm going to use the radial tool. Now I could do exactly what I'm doing with the brush and get an effect and then brush it in over here. The reason why I don't like doing that, or I tend not to do that, is the brush is going to give me a reasonably flat and consistent look across the whole rock. And if I use the radial tool, the effect is concentrated in the center and then is less and less the further out from the circle or the ellipse that you create. And that's going to be really good in this situation because the rock has a curved surface. So using the radial tool is going to emphasize or help me create some definition in this rock. So let's create the ellipse first. So I just click and drag and get myself a circle here, or an ellipse. I'm going to bring it just a little way from the edge. I'm just going to bring it out a little bit. There we go. It's not looking too bad there. I could mess around and and get this right, but that I think will do for now. Now if I hover over the center, you can see that the effect is predominantly on the outside of the ellipse, and I in fact want it on the inside of the ellipse. So to do that, I come down to invert, I click invert, and now the effect is going to be, the red part of the mask is going to be on the inside of the shape that I've just created. So that's perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and add a little bit of warmth to the middle here, probably around about there. Add a little bit more magenta with the tint. The exposure, I'm going to bring that right up, quite high, probably about there. I may even come back and adjust that again. Let's look at the contrast. While not wanting to overdo it, I am trying to get a bit of an effect here where you are struck by the patterns and the detail in the rock. I'm going to bring the highlights up, maybe just a smidge, not too much here. Certainly the shadows could do with a lift. The whites as well. And with the blacks, I'm going to bring them down somewhere like that, I think. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to add a little bit of clarity again. Again, just adding a little bit by little bit, not wanting to overdo any of this too much. Bring that up a little bit. I'll bring the clarity up to about there. I'm going to also increase the saturation. I don't usually, but again, this is a particular look that I'm after, so I'm going to bring that up. So you can start to see now, if I finish with that, you can start to see that there's some detail really happening in the rock there. I'm probably going to go back and just bring up that exposure just a little bit more. How's that? That's looking pretty good. All right. So you can see that it's not covering the entire rock, but it's covering the majority of it, or the center of it. I want to do a similar sort of thing here on the left, because there's some area that the ellipse hasn't affected. And also on the right here, it's slightly darker, and that's all right. But what I'm going to do here is add a couple more ellipses. So I'm going to make a different shape there like that. I'm going to grab it at the end and turn it around. Just manipulate it into position here. Maybe increase its length. That's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to go through and again just do the same adjustments. I'm not going to do exactly the same adjustments. I'm going to do it by eye. I don't actually want them to be exactly the same here, because I'm going for a look that is not consistent right across. These rocks aren't consistent in the patterns and the textures that they have. So doing this, I don't want it to be looking exactly the same. Of course, when I increase the exposure like that, I realize that what I'm doing is I'm actually affecting the outside and not the inside of the ellipse. So I'll click the invert, and now I'm just affecting the inside. So I'll continue with that now. All right, so you can see what I've done here. I've got the original ellipse in the center of the rock. I've got one on the left-hand side and again one on the right-hand side. These are overlapping, which is fine. I then added a fourth one across the top, because that part of the rock was just getting a little bit dark there. Just repositioning it slightly. There it is there. So that gives me the effect and brings out some of the detail, the patterns, the colours of this rock. And the way in which these overlapping radial filters work is that it creates this kind of uneven fall off of the effect, if you like, across the rock, which I really like. Now I'm actually going to add another radial filter, but this time it's not necessarily just to the rock, it is to the image. I'm actually going to crop this image. Before I do that, I'm going to crop the image and bring this down a little bit. Nice. You can just see this is going to work out nicely with the rock falling the way that it is. This is a little bit uneven, but that's fine. You can see just in the corner on the left hand side that there's just a little bit of rock here that doesn't quite neatly make the frame. So I'm just going to cut that out, bring this in just a fraction. That's nice. Yep, so that's done there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this other radial, and this time I'm going to put it right across the entire image. If I want it wider than the image, I just have to bring it to the side there. That's it. About there is pretty good. I'll bring this down. Nice. That's around about what I want to do with that. And again, I'm going to go through and add these adjustments to that. Again, making sure that I'm inverted. Adding a little bit more orange again. Put the exposure up about there roughly now. That's building this and also the rocks on the outside. Now, it is overexposed at the moment, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down. That's the exposure within that ellipse, but I'm going to bring the exposure down of the entire image here. I'm going to bring that down even further, just creating that drama. Nice. I'm going to go back to my radial filter and continue with the contrast. Again, don't want to overdo this, so just a smidge and maybe a little bit of the highlights need to be brought up. So at the moment I'm looking at the highlights of the rock, and I'm also wary of the highlights just in the background here, but it's actually working out quite nicely. Yeah, the shadows could be lifted just a little bit. Again, I'm looking at the rock on the left hand side and seeing how that's being affected there, maybe just a little bit more. The whites are probably fine. I'm not going to touch the whites because I just don't want to blow out these white parts here, but I will bring down the blacks just a little bit. I do tend to like that look. I will increase the clarity just a smidge, but not too much. A little bit more dehaze. Nice. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So I could keep tweaking this image. I may add a vignette. Now the reason why I don't use this vignette as much, and I use that technique with the other radial by increasing the exposure inside the radial filter that I have around here. I've kind of created my own vignetting, and I've decreased the exposure on the outside of the radial by bringing down the main exposure here down to around about -0.8. The reason why I do that is I'm able to create whatever shape that I want, and I'm able to move this around wherever I want. So I'm able to plunk it straight on the subject here, which is this main rock in the middle. If it was over here, then I'd be able to do that and put the vignette effect around there, but it's smack bang in the middle, so it's around about there is where I want that to be. If I was to use this vignetting and bring this down, you can see that it is straight in the middle. If I bring this feathering down, it's really easy to see where it is. There it is there, so you can see where this effect is, and I've got no way of moving where that vignetting is, so I don't tend to use it much anymore and tend to use the other process of the radial filter. What I might do is bring the midpoint all the way down and feather it out to 100. It's probably just a little bit too much, so I'll just back it off just a smidge, but I'm just adding just a very subtle vignetting with this vignetting tool, so subtle that you probably wouldn't even pick it up. The majority of the vignetting has actually been brought in, as I said, with the radial filter here. So that is pretty much it. The only other thing that I might be able to do is grab the brush tool, maybe increase the exposure, perhaps not the highlights, sorry, the shadows, bring them up to something like that, and then maybe just brush in along the bottom here some extra exposure and bringing up some of these shadows just in the bottom there, like that. Probably just a little too much. I might just bring that down a smidge, and maybe even that a little bit as well. Say something like that, and it's just a very subtle effect just to the bottom of the rock here. Anyway, I could continue tweaking this, but they're only very, very minor changes, but that's predominantly the adjustments that I made. There's the before and there's the after. As you can see, it's quite a significant change all up, but it's layered on little bit by little bit. And again, I'm really showing you what is possible quite simply in Lightroom. So that's how I achieved that effect in Lightroom. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and let me know if you want to see any other post-processing videos like this one. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, please give the video a like and share it with your friends. And if you enjoy landscape photography, check out some of my other videos and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But until next time, guys, thanks very much for watching.